Guys, I am super excited for you to meet Christin Collins. Christin is the author of Her Phoenix Rising, this amazing book, A Journey to Health and Healing Through Self-Love. But how Christin came to be on the Ripple Effect podcast is a really fun ripple. We featured Christin and her TED Talk for our TED Ripple for our Connect and Grow Ripple membership. And our folks loved her, loved the talk, loved the conversation, her approach to how to live your life and take control of your health and really be the authentic person that you're supposed to be. It really rang through and it created such a great conversation opportunity for us. So I reached out to Christin on LinkedIn and said, hey, in case your ears were burning, I wanted to let you know that we featured you. And she was so kind and so responsive that we ended up connecting, having a conversation, and I invited her on the Ripple Effect podcast, which she gladly agreed to do. And so I am super excited for you to meet her. She's got a great personality. She has such, a fun energy about her. I am so anxious to dig in to the work that she's doing, the ripples that she's creating out there in the world, and the difference that she's making in a lot of lives, including my own. So I'm so grateful to have her join us for the Ripple Effect podcast. So let's dive right in. Guys, I am super excited to have Christin join us today for the Ripple Effect podcast. This is actually our second attempt. We had a little bit of technical difficulty the last time. So Christin, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing?
I'm very excited to be reconnecting with you and our tech working. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I apologize for, I don't know, it was the internet gremlins trying to keep us apart that day. I have no idea what was going on because it started working right after that. So I just think maybe, the gods were saying, hey, you guys need to save it for another day. And you were going to bring your A game. Now we'll definitely bring our A plus games today, right?
I completely agree. I know everything happens the way it's supposed to. So something must have developed this week that we needed to incorporate.
I got it. Yeah, I love it. And, I feel like a little background inept because your background is like super awesome. It's like total, like, I just feel like that's like awesome.
It's the bubbles effect.
It's the bubbles effect. Well, listen, let's dive in. One of the things that I always like to do just to kind of give my audience a perspective of who I'm visiting with. And, I shared a little bit about your book, Her Phoenix Rising, which is fantastic, by the way. As you can see, I have notes out the yin yang on this, and I got a ton of questions for you, but at the end of the day, I'd really like to give our audience a sense of who you are. And so I always like to start with, because I'm a big comic book nerd, the origin story. How did our hero become the hero? So how did Christin Collins become the awesome person that you are today?
Thank you. How much time do we have? No.
As much as you would like.
The current iteration of who I am originated when I found myself in healthcare. I am not a clinical person, but I found myself as a fundraiser for my first 5 years in a very large healthcare system.
Oh, interesting.
While I was fundraising, I met one of our executives who asked me to participate in some fundraising for his campus. And it was through that work I started connecting with the responsibility I had for my own health and how much of ill health is preventable or reversible.
Yeah.
That was new information for me. I did not know that. I did not know that what you ate affected you, how you thought affected you. So I went through a literal metamorphosis of learning and physical healing that changed the trajectory of my life. So that it was being within healthcare, understanding I'm responsible for my own health, doing the healing work to heal my body that has led me to the Christin that I am today.
I love that. In fact, I actually made a note because you made me laugh when I read about Pop-Tarts and Diet Coke. You could not sustain on that long term. Apparently, this was like some self-discovery.
They're delicious. They're inexpensive. I don't understand it, but yeah, it was amazing. As I was learning, I'm like, wait, what? Driving through McDonald's every morning and getting an Egg McMuffin with no bacon.
Yeah.
Right? And
that's the healthy part, right? No bacon.
And a hash brown, that's not good. I mean,
Yeah.
not even to be cheeky, I swear to God, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we didn't teach that. It wasn't modeled in my family. So that realization of 85% of chronic disease is preventable or reversible. I'm like, why are we not all talking about this? This
Yeah,
is kind of
yeah.
important.
So from the, working in the hospital system, how did you maneuver that into your holistic coaching practice and getting more corporations to recognize and understand the importance to help their employees embrace a more healthy lifestyle?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you.
Thanks.
It was by failing.
Okay, I love that.
It was by failing. We had a shift in leadership
Okay.
as the movement was growing and blossoming and we were innovating, and the new leadership was not vibing it. So I ended up the last 3 years of my professional career not being successful and understanding that there was a lot of traction and then there was no more traction. So I sat in the discomfort of that for 3 years, trying to figure out how do I get this new leadership to buy in? How do I continue the work within healthcare? And COVID hit, and they offered a buyout to try to
Oh,
mitigate the financial ramifications that was happening to hospitals in the beginning of COVID. And my husband and I were like, why don't you go ahead and take the buyout and see what else shows up? So it was through failure that I stepped out of healthcare to then hold this conversation as a solopreneur, as my own LLC.
I love it. Well, congratulations to that. I mean, to me, it doesn't sound like failure. However, it just seems like you had a change in leadership that just didn't adopt what you were really focused on, and that's unfortunate. But I suspect, I mean, there'll be people that will listen or watch this that will probably identify with those challenges. And it's great that you were able to say, I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to take this and I'll just repackage it, repurpose it, and do it through my own,
Steve,
lens.
it was such a wild journey because I was like, hi, it's right here. Look, everyone. And so, a couple lessons in that, to your point, it wasn't failure, right? But it was that conviction and that focus and staying firm to my belief, but also understanding I don't have to do it within this container,
Yeah.
right? I can just step out there. And what has happened now is so glorious because now it's something I can scale and dictate and set my own cultural tone and all the things. I love being a solopreneur. I love the freedom of saying yes to what I want to say yes to and no to what's not a fit. So it was just an evolution, but I love sharing that because I didn't run from it and
Yep.
I sat, I sat. And then all of a sudden this beautiful opening happened, which made total sense. And it was quite obvious. Here's your chance. Go for it.
I love it. I love it. So that obviously led to launching your business in this new direction in your career path. So tell us about the TED journey and how you got on the TED stage. I mean, that's ultimately what brought us together. So I'm
I
excited
know,
to
and I'm
hear about
so
it.
grateful for that. It was such an honor to connect with you. As I was transitioning out of healthcare, I had that opportunity to pause. It was COVID. It was the beginning of COVID,
Sure.
right? And do that reflection on what the heck was that? What just happened? So the documentation of that journey was really just a self-reflection for self that I ended up publishing, not thinking any like who cared? Like I just did it
Hmm.
for myself. It was in that journey that I met a community member who I was hosting a charity gathering in my living room. And she came and asked if she could go to lunch with me after. I said, sure. So we went to lunch because she wanted to pick my brain. And for the first 55 of the 60-minute lunch, she did all the talking. And if she's listening, you know who I'm talking. It's the cutest thing. And I just sat there. I'm like, all right, all right.
Why am
So
I
much for
here? Yeah.
right. When she paused 55 minutes in and took a breath, she looked at me very innocently and with these big eyes. And she's like, would you like to do a TED Talk? And I thought, what? What? And I had not thought
Yeah.
about that. And I was like, yeah, sure. So it's hysterical. The divinity of
Yeah.
not seeking or not pushing, but to be just open hearted and kind, to your
Yeah.
point about your ripple effect,
Yeah.
just showing up in your life authentically. And then all of a sudden, this option came in. So I was gifted. I mean, literally within 5 minutes, I was offered a spot on the Tampa TED stage. The interesting thing about that was that the event got postponed 3 times. So it was a very long journey to get on the stage after that, but that is how I came to do the TED Talk.
Well, there's always so much pressure about the TED Talks. Everybody does it a particular way. There's this nuance to it, right? And of course, you're sort of dictated the amount of time that you can have, so that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But to have it postponed 3 times and have been mentally prepared each time to go, and then all of a sudden, it backs out. What did that do to your psyche?
It was again sitting in the discomfort, which is a
Yeah,
lot of the work that I do. I sat in the discomfort in the healthcare system. I sat in the discomfort of not being able to control the schedule. It was awful,
yeah,
and it made me be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. On the positive, I don't know, on the positive side, but another interesting iteration was that the talk kept shifting. Just like what you and I would have talked about last week
yep,
is shifting to what we're going to connect on today. I was very aware that my own message was shifting. And so the time, while it was challenging, it also helped me to maturate and get closer to what it is I
yeah,
really want to say. Because to your point, it's a different exercise, and give somebody a microphone for 45 minutes to an hour, you can figure out what you're trying to get across. Give somebody a microphone for 12 minutes and you're like, what is the most important stuff I want to convey in 12 minutes? Like,
yeah.
that's hard.
Very, very, yeah, very difficult. But you did an exceptionally good job at it, I gotta say. I mean, our members were really blown away. And when you actually have at the end of your talk a phrase that you use called "be love." Explain to my audience that hasn't seen the TED Talk. We will definitely have a link to it so everybody can see it. But tell us what that means and where does that come from?
Hmm. Thank you for that question. I have chills all over my body right now. Be love was something that emerged from within that I didn't necessarily understand. I just kept feeling it, and
Yep.
it was just something that was coming through me, and I'm like, I don't know, be love. But the way that it came through, which is lowercase b, and then it has a period,
Yeah.
lowercase love with a period is two complete sentences.
I love it.
And the lowercase, why that's so important to me is it's, instead of a command, it's a surrender.
Yeah, that's
And
perfect.
it literally means be, just
Yeah.
stop. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Just be here now.
Yep.
And then the second complete sentence, which again is a letting go, is love. Reconnect to the love that's already inside of you.
Yeah.
So I found myself searching and doing and working my whole life, trying to find something, satiation, wholeness,
Yeah.
joy, success, I don't know, things like my TED shared.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I was actually searching for and trying to accomplish, I was never going to get to by all the avenues I was exploring. It was actually the opposite. We are human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
And we're so busy trying to find that satiation and joy outside of us. And really, what we're looking for is that connection to ourselves, connection to love, knowing and loving who we are and our unique, authentic selves that show up imperfect, that show up traumatized, that show up in joy, and just being okay with being who we are.
Yeah. You sort of touch on this in your talk, but I mean, one of the components, and I know you went through this because you said you were sort of having to identify these things in your own health journey, but we all carry the baggage and we don't recognize how that baggage really impacts where we are in present day, right? And like you said, we're human beings, not human doings, but we all act like human doings. And, we feel like we've been curated to have that culture of what's next and move forward momentum. And those that really struggle, especially when you actually find that you have your body breaks down and you are sort of forced to take a pause because you've got some health challenge of any kind, right? Those opportunities are actually kind of a gift to help you quit smacking your head against the wall, right?
And I have mad admiration for people that get curious about this work that aren't having a health crisis,
Yeah.
right? And or going through a major life experience, but often, unfortunately, it takes us, whether it's a health crisis or a personal crisis or a whatever it may be, where all of a sudden you're, being smacked in the forehead by a
Yeah.
2 by, then what do you do with that information? But I truly admire people that are connecting to this information that aren't at the point of autoimmune deficiency that I was.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so important because I think at the end of the day, we've all heard the term self-care and, protecting our mental health and all of these elements, but, we hear it, but doesn't mean that we do it, right? So the work that you're doing and the commitment to helping people find avenues to realize that this water isn't as deep and isn't as scary as you might think it is. And there is a positive ripple effect in every aspect of your life if you lean into it and embrace it. It's one thing if you already are dealing with a health crisis, but like you said, if you're someone that is not, chances are you will if you can continue to go at the pace that you're going. So my question is, you talk a lot about this process, this approach being really about self-love, right? So what is discovering that for you really taught you? And what do you think other people might be able to discover in themselves if they explored it?
Who are you? This is awesome. So
I'm not
I
a
would
very
get
good interviewer, so I mean,
no,
you're just making me sound good.
you're exceptional. I love these
Thank,
questions. So I would get teased, especially by former executives that I worked with in healthcare, like, I know, self-love, self-care. These are like, self-care is a little bit easier. And I'm like, yeah, manis and petties are great.
yeah,
Massages are great. And I'm going to get a massage tonight. I mean, those are great. But that's not what self-care is, right? It is, how do you show up? How do you consume? What is your mental health? How are you balancing your life? Those things. But self-love is really hard for people to
it is.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm going to do my best to distill that into a
All
very
right,
simple answer.
let's go.
So, right. So self-love to me is about self-acceptance, because we can be anything we want to be in any given moment. So what has happened in the past is just that, the past. What may happen in the future is not here yet.
Yeah.
So let's not waste our time worrying about it. So when we reflect on who we are, and if we don't like who we are, then in that instant, without going to get a PhD or making phone calls or going to the gym, we can love ourselves in that moment by simply saying, I am okay. I am authentic. I am not perfect. I don't like this about myself. So then I'm not going to be that anymore. Right. So self-love is about self-acceptance. And to your point a few moments ago, the baggage that we bring with us that gets embedded cellularly,
Mm-hmm.
energetically in our bodies, in our subconscious neural pathways, we don't even realize the trauma that we perpetuate that were neural pathways established when we were 7,
Yeah.
or from something that we were mortified that happened when we were 22. So self-love is about self-acceptance and sitting in the present and allowing us to have bubble up things that were like, wow, that made me uncomfortable. Let me go ahead and thank that experience, thank that for visiting, exhale it out, and know that that is not me today.
Yeah. Yep.
That's self-love.
Yep. I
And
love it.
also pairing that with an awareness, because we get fearful because we're like, well, that over there doesn't look like me, right? And we want to survive. This is a survival instinct. We think that we need the sameness in order to get along. I'm about celebrating the diversity of each and every one of
Yeah.
us, so that, because if you and I look exactly the same and do everything the same, then
You're,
what's the point?
yeah. It's boring. Yeah. Yeah.
So boring.
Yeah.
One of us is lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So self-love to me is getting really embedded in who you are, why you are, allowing things to bubble up and be released, right? Connecting with that inner voice, that deep inner knowing of, this is my passion. This is really important to me. This brings me joy. And I look around and maybe I'm not seeing that in anyone else, or maybe now I'm going to attract new people to hang out with. But it's really being comfortable in your own skin and accepting who you are, and whatever you don't like, you change.
Yeah. Well, so as people are thinking about this, what is your advice as to how to? I mean, number one, got to get Her Phoenix Rising. That book is, will get you started on this journey. But what are some thoughts or ideas that you could give people who are like, okay, yes, I need to do a better job. I need to focus more of my energy. I mean, one of the things, I mean, you and I are both coaches, and so one of the things that we really resonate with is lead you to the answer all the time. A lot of times it's, hey, we need to ask the right questions to help you get there. But what are some of those questions they need to be asking?
So I love this. And what's super fun about this is that, to your point, we don't have their answers. And what we even think their answers could be probably aren't their answers.
Right.
Our job is to hold space for them to self discover.
Yep.
So the number one technique is ridiculous because it's free, it's accessible all day long. We do it anyway and don't even know it, right? And it's breathing. So
Yeah.
when we start breathing and we're conscious of our breathing and we start getting centered into the present moment, if we allow ourselves to be in the present moment and not be distracted or not dissociate, right, then we can clear the stuff that bubbles up and we can start connecting with that innate wisdom,
Yep.
that divine purpose, that beautiful, unique reason for being, and self-discover our own why. So if anybody's telling you what your why is, they're doing you a disservice.
Correct.
Because for each and every one of us, it's different. So how do you do that? You start by breathing. And what's interesting is that be love, which is be here now, reconnect to the love that's already inside of you, which is what we're saying. It also has blossomed into an acronym of the B stands for breathe.
Yeah.
The E stands for experience. So experience whatever bubbles up. The period stands for pause. Sit with it. Okay, sit with it. The L stands for let it go. And then you have to do that about a gajillion times. Then once we kind of get through that, we start creating a little bit of space where we're not hyperventilating because we're experiencing stuff that we haven't allowed ourselves to experience. We're too busy running away from in fight or flight. The O stands for open your heart. So get out of your conscious mind, get out of your ego, get out of your head, and drop in. So open your heart. The V stands for cast your vision from your heart. The E stands for the energy, the energetic elevation that will occur, the energy that you will attract, the new experiences you will have. And the final period stands for the new presence that you will experience when you go through that iteration.
Oh, what a phenomenal model. I love that.
Thank you.
Love that. Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, that's significant for people to, hopefully you take that away and you really sit with this. And I hope you come back on this podcast and pause and replay this part because this is so amazing. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just hit back 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and watch Christin just perform that because you literally lit up as you explained it. And, you already are like a lightning bolt anyway, but at the end of the day, you could see when that model, because it is so powerful. So what is as a solopreneur, as you mentioned, right, being an entrepreneur, and you are sharing this with a coaching client, or you finally have like a corporate senior leader that's like, I get this and I want this for my team. What does that feel like to you to actually see where you took it from the model you were working on in healthcare to now your own vision in bringing this to the world? What does that feel like?
It's literally happening right now in real time. And it's been, 56 years in the making, but really 3 years in the making. And what I want to share is that it did not start with clarity, right? Like this
Right.
has been a very deep, slow, receiving, a very slow awakening, because this isn't a normal conversation. I'm not having these, like, you don't walk into corporate America and you're like, be here now, reconnect to the love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's happening
Security.
now, right? Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah.
So what's happening now, Stephen, I love this question, is that I am receiving partnerships from people that I'm like, wait, hi, like, what are the odds that I'm going to meet you? What
Yeah.
are the odds, like global partnerships, and the missing pieces of the puzzle that become obvious, like only we had this, and all of a sudden 4 days later, that comes in.
Yeah.
So we are at a tipping point that we've betaed in my community for 6 months, a movement we're calling the Root Cause Healing Movement. And it's offering a compilation of how we can help people get to the root cause of their discomfort, whether it's health, their happiness, their abundance, so they could stop blaming their spouse for their unhappiness or their job for their unhappiness or their health issues and thinking that medicine or surgery is their answer. So we're offering things from conversations, coaching, my book, all the way through to deep dive workshops that help people get into heart coherence and get people's rewiring of their neuro pathways, altering their neuroplasticity so that their subconscious mind no longer defaults into the existing patterns of behavior, and we can recreate new ways to be loved.
I love that. And I want to reemphasize what you just said. It is possible to rewire our brains. It is possible to reverse some of these conditions, but you have to want to, and you have to put the effort forward in order to do so, right? And there'll be one person I know who tunes into this podcast with regularity who continually blames the environment or her circumstances. And I've tried to explain to her, but I'm just one person, but you just guaranteed that she will hear this, that it is possible, but you got to put in the work. It's not something that somebody can do all the heavy lifting for you. You have to be willing to find that courage and be brave enough to lean into that and embrace that, but it is possible.
I think the most courageous thing I've ever done is sitting with myself.
Yeah. And it's the hardest, right? That takes a massive amount of courage to be.
It's a lot easier to judge somebody else and blame them for my circumstance. And
yes.
If anybody does read Her Phoenix Rising, I was just talking to a colleague about this today. One of my favorite chapters is the lobby bar, when I had the awareness that I was sitting there in my miserable life in healthcare, and my former boss was gone, and I was waiting for him to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, what hospital are you in now? Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll relocate.
Bring me over.
What are we doing? And it was 2 years later, and when he had the courage to look at me and say, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, dude, what am I doing? I'm waiting for you to get a new job so I can get a new job too. Like, This is embarrassing.
You left me behind, remember?
Right. I'm trying over here, but they won't listen to me.
Yeah.
I was so humiliated, and I realized I'm giving away my journey, my life, my power to the circumstance instead of stepping into my own journey. Greatest gift, still a dear friend. And by the way, someone I'm now about to partner with nationally on this work.
Well, that's fantastic. But see, that never would have happened had it gone the way you thought it would.
It has the ripple effect.
I love it. And I'm not paying you to put that up, but I mean, that's awesome.
I super enjoyed your journey because I am about the ripple that happens, and so often it's unseen.
Yeah.
I don't take actions, or I'm not who I am because I'm looking to see how that affects others. And, I'm really not. I am really working on showing up for my best self, for myself.
Yeah.
And as I read this and all of your interconnectivity about how you show up and what happens, whether that's positive or negative, I was just reading it and I'm like, I am so in alignment with him because I believe so firmly and I live my life. And now, like I said to you, I'm receiving ripples back that I'm like, whoa. And I'm being and I'm receiving, I'm not doing.
Yep.
Right. And it's just because I'm energetically coming from a place of love. What I'm attracting is blowing my mind.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, you are deserving of it for sure. You touched on this at the very beginning and you said it, but it's like when you give up the control about trying to be prescriptive about how everything is going to happen or work out, when you just finally, say, hey, look, I don't have a lot of control over certain things, but I'm open to all of the wonderful possibilities that will occur when I give up a little bit of that power and control. That's where I think the ripples really come back, right? Everything that you do, every action that you take, and I can see it, you just ooze it, right? But you make an impact, and that impact's not always immediately obvious, but it does always come back to you in ways that you can't imagine.
I mean, and I'm trying to think of a time it is obvious. Like, I wish it was obvious. It'd make it a lot, easier to maintain and sustain. No, and what's happening now, I did a ribbon cutting here locally for the movement as I launched it here. And there were about 50 people who came. I knew half of them. The other half, I'm like, I don't know who they are. I don't know how they found out about this. This is a, and literally these 25 people throughout the afternoon were like, you changed my life. And I'm like, that is awesome. Who are you? Right. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was so heart opening and
Oh
mind
yeah.
blowing. And you're like, 7 years ago, you said this, or I met you with this, or whatever. And so your ripple effect, the courage is to show up authentically and love yourself and not worry about how that affects others.
Yep.
Right. And then to be present enough to receive when that ripple comes back down the road and just be like, that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so much sweeter when it does happen that way, right? Yeah, so much. How did you come up with the title for your book?
This is so great. I love that you asked me that. So I was learning. I went through a virtual program from Georgetown University to start. They held space for me to connect with my thoughts. And they said, you have to have a working title. And I'm like, whatever. So I didn't, I was working on my working title. Simultaneously, it was the beginning of COVID. 3 different people that week I had spoken to on the phone. They're like, what are you up to? I said, I'm writing my thoughts down. I'm just kind of reflecting on my journey of my health journey. And I explained a little bit what it was about. And the first person said, her Phoenix Rising. And I'm like, sure. Okay, Steve, next day, same conversation with somebody totally different. Her Phoenix Rising.
Oh wow.
Okay. Okay. 2 days later, third conversation. Oh, her Phoenix Rising. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. So then I went and searched the domain name because I'm like, obviously that's taken because everyone's saying it to me. So it's
Yeah.
very popular. .com, .org, .net, .biz, all available. All of it for like $1.99.
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, that's why it's called Her Phoenix Rising.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. See that the title just rippled its way to you. I love it. Well, so I could talk to you all day, honestly. I mean, this is just so,
Back at you.
you are amazing at every level. But, one of the things that I like to do is ask some ripple connection questions to give people just a little bit more insight as to who you are, if you're okay with that.
I love it.
All right. Fantastic. Favorite band?
Oh, Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, yeah. How many
All
times
day long.
have you seen them?
61.
61 times you've seen them in concert?
And I've had dinner with them.
Really?
I'm a stalker. No, I love Dave is so high vibing and he is all about love.
Yep.
Right? He is the ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Favorite movie or television show?
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Well, Matthew's here in Austin, so you're going to have to come pay a visit.
And
Yeah.
his new book was so enlightening. And there's other like movies and stuff, but that brings me back to such a beautiful point in my family journey. It was so light and
Yeah.
airy and cute. And I was like, so much of my work and my passion is very intense,
Yes.
and I'm like, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think I've seen it 50 times and I'll watch it 500 more.
I love it. I love it. Well, I mean, we talked about you being an entrepreneur and, kind of a solopreneur, but what is the best thing that you have discovered about it, about this journey?
Yeah, I alluded to this part before. The best part to me about being a solopreneur is that I can own my culture.
Yeah.
I worked in corporate a couple different ways. In hindsight, I look back and I was so passionate about being within a container, being within a space that was kind, that was loving, that wasn't selfless, but it was collaborative, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be a doormat, but it's not about me all the time. And I didn't always find in corporate America or in my work life that I could have that even as a leader within corporations. So now I make my own schedule. I say yes to what I want, no to what I don't want. At times that can be hard because I want to say yes to a lot of things. And, I'm like, well, it's 7:30. Maybe I should shut my computer off. So I have to work at the balance of it. But the joy that I dictate how I show up at work and no one can tell me different.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's freedom. I mean, total freedom for sure. And be successful at it, which you clearly are. Who played a role in helping you become who you are?
There's a number of amazing people. I cite my daughter, my
Yeah.
stepdaughter in the beginning of my book. She's been very inspirational. I think my former boss and now again business partner, Scott Cashman. He's been a huge influence, but the number one that just came through to me when you asked that is absolutely my husband. He has been my number one supporter and cheerleader, and holds me and calls me out. And it's not like, honey, you're amazing, you're brilliant. Like, he creates the tension sometimes that I need to see things that I'm not seeing, or maybe to push me. I am so blessed. There is no doubt this is a beautiful soul agreement. He believes in my work. He wants to see it. And my work, as you know from reading my book, sometimes shares things that maybe you don't necessarily want everybody to know. And not only is that a risk for me and my profession, but it's a risk for him and his profession.
Sure.
And he is the one that has encouraged me to share and tell my story. And I am eternally grateful.
I love that. I love that. Well, what's the best thing a client or colleague could say about you?
That I helped them find the spark within them.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. So, best piece of advice you've received, and how have you used it?
Best piece of advice I've ever received was the understanding that for every single human on this planet, we all have our own lens and see the same exact scenario as its own truth. And that's a chapter in my book. When I learned that, I was like, wait, what? No. There's truth, and then there's not truth. I see the truth. And if you're not in alignment with me, then clearly you're an idiot. When my beautiful friend Heather Christie, who's a very vibrant executive coach, expressed to me that we all have subconscious thinking, we all have different lenses, and that's when I really started getting into neurology. And I realized that everybody has their own truth. Mm-hmm. That completely blew me wide open.
Yeah.
It helped calm my nervous system, all the things. It helped me stop trying to, judging everybody. And it opened up this lens of curiosity and wonder where I'm like, that's so interesting that they see this that way.
Yeah.
It's the best piece of advice I've ever received.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Where do you find your inspiration these days?
God, Steve, the inspiration is literally everywhere around me. Yeah. And it's all day, every day. And I think the deepest, most gut-wrenching inspiration is the beauty and the authenticity and the vulnerability of people trying to connect with themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed, whether it's in workshop or with audience or one-on-one, situations or corporate, when I'm really connecting with someone and I'm witnessing them just trying. And I'm like, a lot of us aren't trying. A lot of us aren't choosing this path. I'd rather be a victim. I'd rather dissociate. I'd rather blame.
Yeah.
So for those who say, all right, I'm kind of understanding you, I'm confused, I'm uncomfortable. Oh my God, it lights me up.
Yeah, I love it. And you can see it in you. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, aside from this work, if you weren't doing what you're doing now and you weren't out on comedy tour, because you are freaking hilarious, what would you be doing?
I promise you, you're funnier than me. I promise you, I would be retired.
Yeah. Just enjoying life?
I would be in a cabin, really, with the composting toilet on a mountainside, growing vegetables and going for walks and reading. I would be connecting with nature and my husband, and that is the next iteration of Christin.
Yeah.
But I feel that this chapter is my life's purpose. I think it's why I'm here on this planet. I think the time is now. But this is it. I don't feel currently that there will be another iteration. I am so in my flow. I am so full of gratitude, and there's so much more to do and experience in this. So I probably got a good 15 years before I retire. But the next phase for me would just be to snuggle on the couch with a blanket and my husband and sip some tea and reminisce.
That sounds absolutely perfect. 3 questions left. This one is a good one, though. I love, what did 8-year-old Christin want to be when she grew up?
A ballerina.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Were you in dance?
I was, and even today.
It'd be strange if you wanted to be a ballerina and you weren't, I guess.
Yeah, well, that would be really weird. Although I'm sure there are people that didn't have access.
That's right, yeah.
Even this past weekend, I was back in the Northeast and visiting my family, and my little brother and I will go to ballet. We will go see Boston Ballet together. Oh. And it's amazing to me the physical reaction I have to ballet and just how much I appreciate the beauty of the art.
Yeah.
It blows me away.
I love it. That's a great answer. Well, you sort of defined this already, but just to clarify one last time, when you think of the term ripple effect, what comes up for you?
Mm-hmm. How we're all interconnected, and that you are a conduit of energy that affects all the other energy, and you receive the energy from others through ripple.
Yeah.
So that awareness of how we're all interconnected and how our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions affect others, and then also to be aware that we're receiving from others, that to me is so powerful. So I want to sit in that knowledge and be a positive beacon of energy and ripple.
Excellent. Well, mission accomplished. You're definitely doing that without question. What ripple can I create for you?
You already have, my friend. You already have.
Well, thank you. I am so honored. I appreciate it. Well, before we let you go, tell everybody how you would like them best to follow you or get acquainted with your work.
Whatever format works for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I participate, occasionally on all the formats. I do have a website, KristinCollins.com, which is where you can access all those portals as well as connect with me if you have any questions or I could be of service in the future.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And Christin, I am just so grateful that you agreed to be on the Ripple Effect podcast. You are amazing. There's no doubt we're going to have to do a follow-up here because, people are going to just absolutely flip for this episode. So I'm so grateful. But
I thank you because getting your communication, I was like, this is amazing. Thank you for shedding light on that TED Talk and for being a light.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Well, guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast very soon. But Christin, until then, ripple on.
Thank you.